Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Our co-host, Danny Sneed, who you know is a veteran, in addition to being a returning citizen, as he likes to say. I like to say ex-con, because that's just what I say. He's done 15 years in prison. He works for the VA, for the Veterans Administration, and he has gotten a great guest for us tonight. We have Dr. LaShondra Jones, who works with female veterans and has done that since 2010. You know, this show is designed to educate the citizens about the services, the problems, the criminal justice system, so we can be educated, because for years I would hear people talk about things and it was just wrong. It was just street justice, street law, jailhouse law, and they would argue with me, a lawyer who worked in the profession every day. And so I realized there was a huge divide between knowledge and actuality. I guess it would be apropos these days, because now we have a new term, right? Alternative facts. So I created this show so that I could address alternative facts, so we could talk about the real facts. And I want to still try to do that as my community service, because I think there's a big gap in education with our organizations and with the criminal justice system. So I want to talk about LaShondra Jones. LaShondra, thank you for volunteering to give us your time tonight to educate us about an area of the criminal justice system and with veterans that we don't know about. So please tell me a little bit about yourself. And you're welcome to look at me or look at your camera. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. So tell me who you are. Who are you?
So I am Dr. LaShondra Jones as of December 2016.
Congratulations on that
Thank you.
doctorate. I know that's a great accomplishment.
It is. It was a lot of hard work. As any student knows, trying to work and go to school, it's a lot of work. However, I loved exactly what I was doing, which was writing about veterans. So my dissertation focused on veterans in the criminal justice system.
Oh, wow.
Specifically, the new veterans that are just now returning home from war. I wanted to know why they are already finding themselves involved in the criminal justice system. Why are they already finding themselves with charges, with felony charges, or finding themselves in Veterans Treatment Court? So I wanted to get to the bottom of it, get to the root of the matter, to see what were some of the issues that they're facing now that they have returned, and have we learned from the Vietnam era veterans? So some of the things that I found, according to the research, was that a lot of these veterans had issues before they went in. You know, back in the day, the judge used to say, you know, if you appear before the judge, either you're going to jail or you're going to the military.
Right.
Well, a lot of them still today still have that. Either you're going to jail or you're going to the military. So a lot of them had issues prior to going in. So once they're in the military, and then they go to war, so now they have the issues from war, and then they have the issues coupled with what happened prior to going, and then now they're just becoming civilians. As we have seen in the last few years, a lot of the shootings in our neighborhoods have been veterans, and it saddens me to see that those who swore to protect and defend the country have actually gone out and shot and killed some of our fellow civilians. So this is an issue that I felt was near and dear to me, because I'm finding a lot of them actually from my branch, the Marine Corp.
So tell us about that. So in your background, so you are from the Marine Corps. Tell us about that.
I actually signed up when I was 17 with my mama's permission.
Had you already graduated from high school?
No, I actually hadn't. I was still in 12th grade, and my dream was to go to Spelman. So I got the ACT scores, and I'm ready to go. And this recruiter came to my school, and I was like, sign me up. So, yeah, I was off actually.
You can sign up for the Marine Corps at 17?
At 17.
Before you graduate from high school?
Absolutely.
I did.
Absolutely.
Okay. But is it then you enlist actually when you graduate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
So I actually went a week after my 18th birthday, which was actually a few months later after signing up. So I went there to boot camp, and I was stationed in Southern California for 4 years. And by the age of 21, I had served my country for 4 years honorably.
Oh, all right. So
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. So what did you do in serving? What was going on in those times in our society?
So I was actually after Desert Storm, but I was before Iraqi freedom, so I was during peacetime.
Okay.
However, we did a lot of training. But one of the things that I did experience, that women weren't allowed to go to certain places. We weren't allowed to go to certain areas of the world to train like some of the male soldiers. So,
and why was that?
Because I was a woman.
I mean, but what was the Marine policy on that?
Well, because they're, what they would say, how they would actually package it up, is because there are no birthing areas for women. Because a lot of my fellow soldiers would go to Australia, they would go to Korea, they would go to Africa, and because there were so many men, they would say, oh, there's not, any places that women can go to actually clean themselves or to have privacy. And then they had that whole issue, if you're on a ship with 10,000 soldiers and 5 women, then you know what could be some of the issues that they face as well. So yeah, those were some of the issues and some of the reasons why they said that we couldn't go, because of the ratio, the men to women ratio. But things have changed.
It kind of makes sense, really.
Yeah, but things have changed. Things have changed. So now, because of the whole equality issue, we're now seeing more women that are receiving those roles that men receive and are able to actually travel with the men.
So during your 4 years, what were your assignments?
I was a radio operator. So again, for 4 years, I trained, did a lot of hiking, preparing for war, but never got a chance to go to war.
And what would you have done if you went to war? You would have been a radio dispatcher?
Radio operator. So, of course, without your communication, you don't know when the helicopter's coming, you don't know how to signal if you're being hit by gunfire, because if you don't have communication, your platoon is pretty much going to be wiped out, because you don't know where safety is or where to tell some of your fellow comrades where to come get you. So, yeah.
Statistically, radio people don't last long in war.
No, a few seconds.
Why not?
Because of the communication. If you don't have the communication, you don't have anything.
And then you instead of you defending yourself with a gun, you on the radio all the time, but you got to move with the troops that are fighting.
Oh, okay. So you're not sitting down like at Magic 102 or 97.9.
No, not that radio.
You're not station. Oh, okay. I didn't know.
You got the radio on your back.
I need to be educated.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Yeah. So you're either there in the front.
So when you said you were doing a lot of hiking, you meant hiking with that radio
absolutely
equipment. Oh, I didn't know what you were talking about. I thought that was your exercise.
No, absolutely.
This is an educational show. Educate me.
Yeah. So not only were we hiking with the radio, but the extra batteries, the cleaning equipment,
that's right.
Your uniforms.
Was it heavy?
Your boots, absolutely. And
wow.
especially if you were 120 pounds soaking wet, as I was.
As you were.
So,
oh my God.
Yeah. So you have to keep up with the men. Like I say, if you have.
Were you tall then?
I was.
And you weighed 120? Oh my God, you were a beanpole.
Yeah, I was.
You were a beanpole.
With a radio
I still
on
had
the
to
back.
keep up with everybody.
Oh my God.
Yeah, these big burly Marines, I had to keep up.
Oh wow. So you had to have the equipment and be talking on the radio at the same time. So does that require you to know more about longitude and longitude or whatever you call it, to know where you are and the compass effect?
Well, there was always someone who had the compass to tell us where we're going.
Okay.
And so of course we have to be close together, because I have to be able to translate where we are, where we're going, what the longitude and latitude, as you said. So yeah. So we have to stay close to each other. So when he walked, I had to walk. When he stopped, I stopped. So yeah, there was no stopping and not going. If they kept going, I had to keep going. So yeah.
Wow.
So it taught me a lot. Endurance.
And teamwork.
Yeah, teamwork.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Yeah. So at 21, when you get out of the Marine Corps, what do you do next?
I actually went and I completed my bachelor's. I went to the University of Memphis, and after that I got my master's. After that I did a little bit at Southern Law because of my mom. My mom got sick, so I ended up going home. I stayed there for a year and became a forklift operator.
Wow.
Believe it or not, at General Motors. I did it for a year.
With a master's degree, you became a...
I was overqualified for everything. I was overqualified for everything.
But you needed a job.
Yeah, I needed a job. So I did that for a year. And I actually became the chairman of the Veterans Committee at General Motors, because it had been defunct for years. Nobody wanted to take it over. And so I got elected as the president of the Veterans Committee. And so I actually started to find out who was a veteran. And somebody next to me didn't even know they were a veteran. They had either retired as a veteran or they served their 4 years in a veteran. And we just didn't even know, oh, hey, he's a veteran or she's a veteran. So, yeah, in situations like that, it's good to know who's actually served their country, because you definitely want to honor them and you definitely want to let them know the resources that are out there. That, hey, did you know you can go to school for free? Did you know if you're from Texas that you get the Hazelwood Act? Did you know that if you don't want to go to school, your child can go to school in your place?
And that's the Hazelwood Act,
That's
right?
the Hazelwood Act, yeah.
I didn't know that. My daughter, she could.
Yes.
Absolutely.
My brother told me that
Absolutely.
it wasn't always in effect, but I think that it's been in effect for a while. I think my brother's daughter she did some of hers.
Wow.
Yeah, so if the parent doesn't want to go to school, then there's the Legacy Act. Then their child can go instead of the
But I
parent.
think my brother he did his education with it too, I think.
Yeah,
But
and
then
then the
they gave
GI
the
Bill.
children something. I forgot what it was, but it
And
was
they get a
something.
stipend also. Yeah.
They gave them something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
That's
that can
awesome.
That can happen. So interesting. So, okay, so then you do the forklift, and then what happened after that in your life?
So I decided it was either going to be D.C. or it's going to be Houston. I said, well, Houston's a little bit closer, so let's try Houston. So I came to Houston, and I decided I'm going to go ahead and start this PhD.
What year did you come here?
2011.
Okay.
2011. I came here in 2011. Started talking to some people about, what I wanted to do. And I knew it was going to be something dealing with veterans. I just didn't know it was going to be veterans in the criminal justice system. So I was trying to figure out a way to merge my education with working with veterans. So again, I started to see that there was an influx of veterans that are being involved in the justice system. And I actually, one day walking down the hallway, there is a professor that has a list of internships. And I saw one of the internships that piqued my interest. So I asked her about it, and she said, yes, it's an organization that works with ex-felons who had served 20 or more years, which is a very unique population. So I started to go and volunteer there. I didn't do an internship because I wasn't required to do one, but I actually volunteered, and I started to meet veterans. So I met a veteran who was actually a Vietnam veteran. It was during the election of Barack Obama, the second election. So I started to ask everybody, who's registered to vote? Do you know what it means to vote? Do you know what the parties are, what the differences are? And he said, well, I could never vote again. And so I'm like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean you can never vote again? You're out? He said, well, I'm still on papers for I think he said 2050.
Oh yeah, he came.
He's
after that.
he's a Vietnam veteran.
Right.
So he started to tell me his story. Of course, he said that he was drafted, and when he came back, he was already high on heroin, and he was too far gone. And so he turned to the streets, and before you knew it, he was incarcerated 33 years.
Wow.
And he
For
has
heroin?
lost. No, for other crimes, but it was a
Supporting
trickling.
his habit.
Yes, it was a trickling effect, of course, as a result of having gone to war. And so he
And in
served.
Vietnam, I'm from San Antonio, so a lot of Vietnam vets were there. And I was younger, like middle school, but they were all on heroin, or they could drop Christmas trees, Quaaludes. They smoked weed like it was legal.
Yes.
And I was younger. My older cousins would be with those. They'd go to the NCO and be with the veteran guys, because it's a lot of military bases in San Antonio. It's
Yes,
5 to
absolutely.
be exact, or it was 5 when I was growing up. And it seemed like they gave it to them. I think they told me when I was a little girl, I was in junior high school, I'm pretty sure they told me that the Army gave those young men, those soldiers, that drug. I think they gave it to them. I mean, that's what they told me. I never hear people say that.
To
but
deal with
because they were
being in
18 and
Vietnam?
19 years old, to deal with the war and the fact that you don't know who's your enemy and who's not, because the North Vietnam and the South Vietnam look the same. The Vietnamese, the people look the same.
Right.
So it was a very difficult war, because you didn't know. I mean, you were supposed to know what side you were on, but you really didn't know what side you were on, because the people looked the same.
And then at that time, when they returned from war, the VA wasn't ready to handle them. So there was actually no diagnosis. The
And they were all
DSM had
called.
no
They
diagnosis.
always said they were shell shocked. That's what they used to say. They
That
were
was a
shell
term.
shocked.
That was a clinical
everybody-
term.
Everybody was shell shocked.
Yes, and it was not until the 80s, so they decided to put a label on it, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's when the VA began to say, okay, let's look closely at these mental health issues that these soldiers are now facing now that they have returned home. And let's start to deal with it.
And compensate them.
And compensate them. And some still are trying to become compensated. After 30, 40 years, they're still trying, because, of course, the VA says, well, it has to be in your medical records.
Right.
But these were guys in Vietnam.
Right.
This was in the 60s and the 70s.
And they were healthy. Other than the fact that
Absolutely.
the military let them have dope to cope with what they were doing.
And then dealing with
killing
Agent
kids and
Orange.
people. And Agent Orange.
I have a Marine that's watching from Texarkana, Texas. Her name is Bess Gamble. And you got a chance to talk to her on the phone. And Texarkana is only about 65,000. And she is almost like a duplicate of Dr. Jones, what she does here in Houston. She's doing the same thing in Texarkana, Texas.
Oh, good.
And I mean, she is pounding the pavement to fight for veterans' rights. And what she's finding out is this: how politics and race plays a part in this picture, meaning that you'll take a guy that goes in and says, I have this problem. They may give him 100%. Then you have this other guy goes in, has multiple history of problems, and they may give him 30%.
Right.
And
you can't tell what the formula is they're using.
well, one is white, one is black. So what she's trying to get them to realize is, how does one guy go into the regional office, comes out, brags about, I got 100%, go buy a new car, shows no symptoms at all of having any post-traumatic.
And then you have to deal with the gender issue as well, because we have a lot of women who have experienced MST, military sexual trauma. How do you prove that?
Right, because
How
it's
do
your
you prove
word
it?
against theirs.
It's your word against theirs.
So
And
you-
back
without
then
the
they didn't talk
advocacy.
about it. They did
Right.
not talk about it.
Yeah.
And so now you're finding these women, some 30 and 40 years later, are now having these reoccurring nightmares. And they're now reliving what happened in the summer of '75 with their platoon sergeant or with their NCO officer or that platoon
drill
mate
sergeant.
that they had a baby by and never told anybody.
Wow.
Had a child by and never told anybody. So now they're trying to go to the VA and say, hey, wait. This happened to me 30, 40 years ago. And then so the VA is like, well, prove it.
How can you prove something
How
from
can
30,
you-
40 years?
how-
Where's the
can't prove it.
documentation where you reported or you went in for treatment? Because that's how they really try to compensate you with the VA. And we're learning and we're educating that if you got a problem and you're not going and you're being treated for it, you're not going to get
didn't
paid
happen.
for it. And they need a record of showing that you're going in. And so what the veteran does is on the street, when you go out and try to pull them out the street and say, go get help, it's the challenge of going in and actually doing it consistently. Like they say, okay, we're going to treat you for it or diagnose for it, but you need to report her every week for groups, twice a week. So you sit in these groups and they talk about their past experience. Now, so every time you come in, they're checking off, he showed up. So when you go in for a compensation hearing, they look at the record and they say, this guy must have problems. He is constantly coming in for help. And then sometimes that may be the measurement or the deciding factor where you get benefits. And I digress because it's not.
And in the alternative, you're having women that don't want to show up because of their experiences that they face while in the military. And they were told that if you tell somebody, we're gonna transfer you someplace else. So they've kept that secret for so long that now that they're post-military, they don't want to have anything to do with the VA. So it's sort of hard for us to try to get them to go into the VA and tell their story or to receive treatment. To even go to the women's clinic, to just be able to say, hey, I'm a woman veteran, and I serve my country. I deserve these services, but because of what happened, I don't want to have anything to do with y'all. So that's one of the challenges that we're still facing today. So currently, Texas is creating legislation. Thanks to a lot of veterans who are now going to the Texas legislature, to the Capitol, saying, hey, these are some of the issues that women veterans are facing. In addition to the issues that the male veterans are facing, these are some of the other issues. A lot of people don't know that of the 22 suicides a day amongst veterans, the majority of those are women.
Oh, wow.
We don't talk about that. So the Texas legislature has now drafted a bill that is bringing more awareness to the issues that veterans are facing. And another thing that I am actually following is the dorms. When we talk about criminal justice reform, we seldomly talk about veterans in the criminal justice system and the fact that they need rehabilitation. They don't just need to be thrown in jail or in prison, because once those doors close in the jails or prison, the PTSD doesn't go away. They're still dealing with it. So now you have them in a small cell with a cellmate, and they're having these flashbacks of being in Iraq or Afghanistan. So these are some of the issues that we have to deal with. So now what we're trying to do is to make sure that we have the veterans dorms, so that these veterans are receiving rehabilitation, that the VSOs, which are the veteran service organizations, are actually coming into the dorms to offer the treatment, to make sure that they are receiving the services that they have earned. To make sure that the jails are actually, and the prisons are actually getting an accurate count of who's actually a veteran, so that more services are being created for them. So one of the other things that I have been seeing thus far is a women veterans dorm. So
Now, are you saying that for the Harris County Jail or for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice?
Texas Department of Criminal Justice here in Texas.
Have you checked at the Harris County Jail?
I don't know for sure if they have one here, but I know that we've been following in Austin, the jails there, and that's been the prototype, actually. But we do have a few veterans dorms around the state of Texas.
For men?
For men, but none for women. Yeah, and we just recently found a county here in Texas that has the largest number of women veterans. The state of Texas has the largest number of women veterans in the country. And actually, for veterans in general, we're number 2. California's number 1, Texas number 2, and Florida.
So let me make sure I got my stats right. So
Okay.
Texas is number 1 in
And
what?
women veterans.
In women veterans.
Just so incarcerated.
No. In general, just they live in the state, reside in the state of
Oh,
Texas.
Okay, and then we're number 2 at what?
Veterans in general. That's women and men. California's number 1, and then the population for the population of veterans in Texas is number 2, and then Florida's number 3. So Florida's been number 2 for years, but now Texas has now become number 2. And the reason is because those who are actually leaving those bases are actually wanting to stay here in the state of Texas because of the weather, because of the jobs. Employment is better here in Texas than it is in a lot of other states. So we're finding in San Antonio a lot of those military soldiers who are being discharged are deciding to live their life here in the state of Texas, and we've been voted the most veteran-friendly state in the country.
Okay, because
No,
we don't have
that's
Marines,
positive.
because obviously San Antonio doesn't have any water, but we do have a military base. I mean, Army and Air Force.
Right.
Army and Air Force. Okay, wonderful. So tell me about the work that you do.
So daily, my work is with women veterans. So what I do is I focus on women veterans who are either homeless, who are facing homelessness, and who have mental health issues and need more long-term housing. So those are some of the things that I work with day to day with women veterans. And recently we've expanded to the county area because once you get past the city lines and the county lines, you start to lose some of your veterans. So we're looking to even expand even further, hopefully to Montgomery County.
So tell me what you do about your first area, the homeless veterans. What do you do about that?
So when a homeless veteran comes, or when we receive a referral from the VA from another organization, say, hey, I have a woman veteran that's sleeping in her car, is sleeping at the VA, and we've also had a family that was literally sleeping in Walmart. Not outside of Walmart, not in her car, in Walmart.
Wow.
So the employees were actually helping her out and making sure that no one's going in there because she had 4 kids. So when we receive those phone calls, we immediately jump on it. And we go to get the woman veteran wherever she is, if she doesn't have transportation, and we bring them to the facility where we are, which is a transitional living facility. And we make sure that they are housed. But the challenge that we're facing, and it's actually a national issue, is those who have either multiple kids or have older kids. So if you have children who are 5 or 6, 7 years old, but you have a 17-year-old who's still considered a minor, we can't house them because you have a child that's 17. Because you have an environment where there's younger kids, so you can't have a 17-year-old boy with smaller
Little
kids.
girl.
So that's a challenge that we're facing not only here but across
Now,
the
but
nation.
tell me why. So then they won't be with the mother the mother can't be responsible for a 17-year-old boy roaming around. I don't understand.
She can be responsible for it. However, there has to be supervision at all times. Okay. So let's say she needs to go to a group and the child has to have supervision.
Gotcha.
And we don't have child care for a 17-year-old. We have child care for those who are either younger kids. But how can you have child care for a 17-year-old? Yeah, so that's
I mean,
been
you
the issue.
can, so the families can stay together.
It sounds great, but when you have teenagers and you have a child care provider who's playing the games and doing the coloring books, that's a bit of an issue. But we never want to turn anyone away. So what we'll do is actually put them in a hotel.
The 17-year-old or the whole
We'll put
family?
the entire family. We want to keep the families together because, of course, we promote family unity in addition to self-sufficiency. So we'll try to do what we can to put the child and the entire family into a hotel. Yeah, and so then we start to call other services to see what we can do to make sure that we don't have a family that's literally homeless. But we're one of the few women veteran organizations that houses women veterans.
Wow. Okay, that's a good idea. So once you transition them and you intake them, if they can live there or live in an apartment, what do you do to help the female veteran get a job or get the mental health services she might need?
So we offer wraparound services because, of course, when you have housing, you can't just have housing and not have employment. So we also have a financial coach, we have an employment coach, we have a housing advocate. So we all work together to make sure that she has her resume together, to make sure that she knows how to interview, she knows how to get a job, but not only get the job, but keep the job, because that sometimes is the biggest challenge, actually keeping the job. You can interview and be offered a job and get the job, but can you keep the job? We also try to offer childcare because when a woman is trying to get on her feet, she still has to have a place to send her kids. So we offer that. And also, we want to make sure that we're sending her to an area, to a community where it's safe. We don't want to just send her to an area that's going to be unsafe because, oh, that's the only thing that she can afford right now. We want to make sure that she's in a place that's safe for her and her kids. So what we'll do is we'll get her on her feet and help her pay a couple of months of her rent and make sure that she's okay from that point on. And we'll offer some aftercare just to make sure that she's maintaining and she's able to continue to work and continue to maintain her household. So we're not going to put you in a $1,500 apartment if your income is between $2,000 and $2,500 a month. So we don't want to set you up for failure.
Right.
We also offer the peer-to-peer group. So if you're living on property or if you're not on property, we want to make sure that you're coming together with a group of your peers and that you can just basically see that there are other women that are going through what you're going through so that you can kind of lean on your sister. And then you'll start to find that she's been through what you've gone through or she's currently going through what she's going through.
Right.
So that also helps. And then most of our staff are veterans.
Okay.
So we either have been there, done that, or we know how to help you navigate through the VA system. And for myself, I make sure that I'm listening to the issues and I'm taking these issues to the state legislator and to the federal policymakers to let them know there's boots on the ground here. I've been in the trenches with these women. I've been up with them late at night when they were fleeing their husband and their boyfriend from domestic violence. And so when I'm going to these lawmakers' offices, I'm not just going with education, but I'm going with the wealth of experience and knowledge. So I'm letting them know what these women are actually experiencing so that we can make sure that there's laws in place so that we can move forward and help them so that we don't have another influx of homeless veterans post-combat.
So have you been, are you on the agenda in Austin now that our legislative session is going on?
Yeah, so we've already, myself and a few of my co-workers have already gone to a couple of the senators' offices and let them know, hey, we're tracking these bills. We want to make sure that you're adding women to this. When you say PTSD, we also want to distinguish between PTSD and MST, military sexual trauma. So when you say that you're looking for veterans or you're looking for to help veterans with PTSD, we want to make sure that we include MST. And that goes back to the dorms. When we're creating facilities or dorms for men, we want to create a dorm for women as well. In addition to that, we've also worked with some senators who have drafted legislation that focuses to make more awareness, campaign awareness. We want to make sure that they're including women. So when they begin to do the posters and the ads and the PSAs, make sure you don't forget the women. So there's just a few bills that we've been tracking thus far, and we're going to continue to track them throughout the legislative session, and also we'll be there to testify as well.
Are they including the women in the bills?
So far, there's not been a lot of bills that I've seen. We do have a bill that we actually got passed, House Bill 867, which was passed in the 84th legislative session. So we're looking now to amend it.
What's the number?
House Bill 867. And it was actually drafted and authored by Representative Ana Hernandez. So the bill actually...
Do we know where Ana Hernandez is from?
She's out of Jacinto City.
Okay.
So the bill has actually come up on the floor a few sessions prior to actually...
And what did it ask for?
So this was the Texas Women Veterans Program. In the beginning, it was an initiative. So we actually had her to make sure that this actually becomes a bill and it becomes a actual program. So this program is now, the bill has passed and the program is now in place. So now women veterans are able to call to Austin to this program to ask whatever resources that they are in need of, whether it's to help someone navigate them through the VA system. They can call the number to the Texas Women Veterans Program, and they can receive their services no matter what city that they're in. They'll receive a phone number or a link or a referral, because a lot of women veterans just don't know how to navigate themselves through the system. So Senator Lucio is actually trying to amend it to add more services. And one of the things that we're asking for him to do is to list homeless shelters for women, so that they don't have to call all of the different shelters trying to find a place to go, and that they'll actually have a list that says, this is where a homeless women's shelter is, and this is a shelter that will actually take your kids. Because a lot of the shelters will take a woman, but they won't take their kids. So we want to make sure that it's not a challenge for women to actually have safety if she's fleeing her husband or if she's been evicted, that she's not literally sleeping on the street or having to sleep in her car in Walmart.
Now, before we started the program today, you told me about a lot of women who are very educated but find themselves sleeping in their cars. They have nice houses and then they find themselves homeless. Tell me about some of the type of situations that create that phenomenon.
A lot of them can't keep the job because of the mental health issues. When you have the loud outbursts and you have the anger issues, and if you haven't dealt with it, then at some point your supervisors are going to pull you to the side and say, you know what, we can't deal with this any longer, so we're going to have to let you go. And however, so if you have a car, if you have a house, you have children, what do? Because you didn't save, there's no 401k, everything's depleted, so now you're living paycheck to paycheck. And then that unemployment runs out and you find yourself homeless. And then, of course, when you find yourself homeless, you now have evictions on your credit, you have broken leases, and it's harder to try to find new housing because now you have to pay a double deposit. So those are some of the issues that they're dealing with. And then the MST, we're going back to that. We have to look at the root cause of the problem. So when a woman has dealt with military sexual trauma and she's living with the boyfriend or she's starting to have issues with her husband and he has gotten fed up and he asks her to leave, where does she go? And sometimes it's a trickling effect where she turns to drugs or she finds herself in more toxic relationships and then eventually she'll find herself homeless.
Wow. So when you were defending your dissertation, what was the issue or what are the issues?
So my dissertation again focused on veterans who have returned from Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom. America thought that they were completely prepared to deal with this, but they weren't. So we were finding veterans that were returning home and looking for employment. So if you have been in a certain type of position, occupation, where it was a stressful position, and now you're told that no one wants to hire you, or the only place you can get hired is Walmart. But you've been in this high stressful position and now you're at this low level position or this position where it's, kind of quiet and peaceful, you're not going to be able to function right away. So then we have to get the mental health treatment and make sure that they're not going to the VA asking for an appointment and they're told, oh, we'll get you in the next 6 months. That poses an issue. Some of the other issues when they come back, again, because of the appointments, the wait time. So if you have a veteran who has been experiencing mental health issues, they can't wait.
Right.
Life can't wait. So then they turn to drugs and alcohol, and sometimes they get behind the wheel of a car, and next thing you know, they have a DUI situation, or they've actually had a fatal car wreck, and someone's child or someone's mother or grandmother has been killed, and you find them now serving time with the Purple Heart. And I was telling Danny earlier, one of the things that I plan to do in the future is focus on veterans who are on death row. Do they still receive the honors? Should they receive the honors that they deserve once they are buried? Should they receive their full honors and their ribbons and their uniform? Because we've had some opposition, some objection at some of the prisons that are saying they shouldn't receive their honors, their full honors, but they deserve it. They earned it. So why not allow them to be buried in the uniform that they wore, that they fought for? So that's one of the things I'm going to be working on in the future is veterans on death row. How do they get there? And statistics are actually showing that it's as a result of combat. Most of the veterans who are on death row have served their country in a wartime situation, and a lot of them we're finding that they're Vietnam. There's not as many OEF, OIF, but most of them are Vietnam. There's a
Don't use no acronyms. We don't know what you're talking about.
Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom. So these are the newer veterans that are returning home. Okay. These are the ones that we're now starting to find in the Veterans Treatment Court. Okay. The Veterans Treatment Court have only been around about 10 years, which was started by Judge Bill Russell in Buffalo, New York. So what he started to see was veterans were returning home and finding themselves in the justice system. So that revolving door. They weren't receiving rehabilitation. They would just find themselves in front of the judge, and then they're let go, and then they're back again. So he decided to create a program where it's rehabilitation, so that when they're coming to court, they're actually receiving services. They're actually going through counseling, court-mandated counseling, and typically it's at least a year. So what happens is that, and we actually have a felony treatment court here, which is presided over by Judge Mark Carter, a veteran himself. And that's one thing that they also try to do in the Veterans Treatment Court, is to make sure that the judge... And I think he's gotten
awards for that. I went to law school with him. He's 1 year behind me in law school.
He actually received the Rehnquist Award this year.
Yeah, he won an award this year for it. I follow him on Twitter.
Yes.
And we're classmates. And we were prosecutors together.
Okay.
And so I know and respect him very much, and I appreciate the work that he's done, because obviously his father was in the military, he was in the military,
Yes.
his brothers are in the military. I know one brother at one point worked at the VA, maybe it still does. So that's important. He's doing some important work there.
He's a passion for the lives of veterans that are coming before his court.
course, yeah.
So they're coming out a lot different than they were when they came in. A lot of them come in, they're very angry. So once they go through the rehabilitation and they're among a group of their peers, so they don't have to say, oh, this person doesn't know what I've gone through, because you're now among a group of your peers who've also been to war and are also experiencing the same drug issues or the anger management issues. So they're able to go through the programs together, and they actually have a graduation, which is a really good thing, because it rebuilds their confidence again.
Right.
Yeah.
And they get the services. So Danny, come on into that conversation.
Well,
What do
you
wanna
know,
talk about?
I work on a campus where there may be between 800, maybe 1,000 veterans that are housed right here in Houston. And I've been in that community for probably 8 to 10 years now. And what I've seen is that post-traumatic stress disorder it takes on two different entities in me. It seems like that when we leave the military, the same experience and challenges a person getting out of the military face, it seems like the same challenges that people face that getting out of prison that hadn't been into the military. It's like they're returning from being in the military, we got an honorable discharge, and you have all these expectations. I don't have a criminal record. I got an honorable discharge, Vivian, and I probably got a high school diploma to even get in the military. So I got two documentations saying that, hey, I'm worth the challenge of hiring me, the risk. And when you go in and you end up being denied, it just blows you away, and it did me. I came home to my hometown, Texas County, Texas. They had industries there, and I even applied for the post office. I wasn't a returning citizen. I was a veteran returning with an honorable discharge to my neighborhood, Newtown, and I felt like I did it. I got out of high school in 1982. I came back, it's 1988. I didn't get into trouble. I don't have any felonies in my background. I'm gonna go work at the paper mill, the Coosa. I'm gonna go work for Red River Lone Star. I'm gonna go work somewhere, and all these places were denying me. It frustrated me. I'm on unemployment. I got 2 children, and I got an honorable discharge, and I can't get a job.
And why do you think you couldn't get a job? I mean, looking back and knowing more now than you did in 1982, what do you think the root cause or reason was that they weren't putting our veterans first in terms of jobs?
Well, economic, I have to admit, in 1986, the market crashed here in Texas. The oil industry took a dive. So they weren't doing a lot of hiring. They were doing a lot of firing. But that shouldn't have affected me.
Well, it would have, but I could see it affecting your ego. Because I noticed a lot about the veterans. When I moved to Houston in '76, I met a lot of people, and it seemed like in the '60s, in the early '70s, people were getting preferential jobs, but Houston had a lot of jobs. I mean, so when I came here, a lot of people had really good jobs, or their daddies or their boyfriends or their husbands who were about 10 years older than me had good jobs, and you were like, how did you get that job at the railroad or at Coca-Cola?
Right.
And now San Antonio didn't have
here in Houston.
Budweiser, right? In San Antonio, those shell shock guys weren't getting those jobs because San Antonio didn't have a lot of industry in the '70s, and I came here when I got out of high school in '76. So it wasn't a lot of industry there. I mean, you had to work at just a few different places. Everybody worked civil service. So you got out of the military, you worked civil service. My parents met that way. My father was in World War II.
You stayed there for 30 years.
And you stayed there until you retired. My mother died working at Kelly Air Force Base. So my father was at Kelly Air Force Base. That's how they met in the 40s. And so everybody, because they were 1919 and 1922. So everybody in San Antonio worked military. They worked civil service. They found something for them to do.
Do you know this? I found out running. The military doesn't advertise. Like, they do not promote themselves. When you get out of the military, you're not going to see a commercial. Oh, you're a veteran. You're looking for a job. Come to the VA. We got you. The VA is like hidden. The only way you know about it, the VA, is another veteran got to tell you there's such thing as a VA. And you're like, I didn't find out it was a VA until it was too late. I had already had I was a returning citizen by then.
It was too late. But because you probably could have come to San Antonio and had a job. Because, I mean, like I said, it's 5 military bases. And so everybody that was black in San Antonio either worked there or they worked at one of the hotels. I mean, because it wasn't a lot of industry. It wasn't industry. Industry is there now. Like USAA wasn't there when I was growing up. I mean, it's there now. But I'm just saying it was not there. If it was, it had just started. When I left, they had just brought the Spurs. They had just started UTSA, which is popular now, but it had just started when I was in high school. And so, right before I came here. So it hadn't created its tradition or its reputation yet.
So one of the issues that the new cabinet in D.C. now is dealing with is, in addition to medical health care, mental health care, is putting veterans back to work. And State Representative Steve Cohen, out of my great state of Tennessee, has authored a bill, House Bill 856, which is putting veterans back to work, making sure that these companies who are saying that they're hiring veterans are actually doing that, and that that these veterans are receiving sometimes a 10-point or 5-point. We see that in the government sector, but we want to make sure that that's also offered in the private sector. Say, hey, you know, you're receiving incentive if you hire a veteran. So we want to see more companies that are actually hiring the veterans, because if you have a veteran that's working, that's less of a chance for them to be isolating themselves. That's less of a chance for them to do commit constructive behavior that will lead them to the criminal justice system. So if you have a veteran who's a Purple Heart, who's served their country honorably, you want to make sure that they're receiving work, and hopefully equal to what they were working when they were serving their country.
And let me tell you what I'm scared about. I was always scared about this. When we went after 9/11 and we went to war, I was afraid because we didn't have a draft. I've not liked the wars without drafts, because what I saw growing up is when everyone is drafted, forget all the draft dodgers. I'm not worried about that, because if you dodge the draft and you grew up and became senators and congressmen, you still took care of the veterans that went. You know, even if you had to run from it, you're not going to not take care of the people that could have been you. What's always scared me about the voluntary army that we have now is the fact that the rich kids, or the people who can, because most people who go into the military, they go there to pay for their education, basically. So they're the poor people. That's the poor people. I mean, basically the military is the poor people. And so now, every time we have a war, starting with Iraq, Afghanistan, it's voluntary. People have to keep cycling in and out because there's not enough people in there. And nobody is making a joyful noise in the United States about that, because just think of how difficult it was that the draft dodgers properly took care of the Vietnam veterans. They got them jobs. That's why I think, that's my theory. I mean, I was too young to really know, but I was alive, and it appears that they made sure they had jobs. They made sure when they came home, they got parades, because they knew that the ones in power had dodged it, but they took care of the rest of them. What worries me now is that, will the person who didn't even have to dodge the draft take care of the person who went in and has and they have more catastrophic injuries? It's not just mental. They have eyes out, legs out, because they've been blown up. Will their contemporaries who didn't have to dodge the draft take care of them? I think that's a problem. I think that if we have a war, it should always be a draft, so that everybody is similarly situated. And like I said, I don't care about the ones who dodge it if they become the leaders. I think that they'll take care of those who had to go and serve, and appreciate that they didn't go. So I think the next generation has a big problem to deal with, because they're not going to give a damn. They're not going to care. Because, I didn't have to go. Why'd they go? They're partying, drinking, hanging out on 6th Street, having fun, when their contemporaries who want to go to college are there serving and getting killed and maimed. And who's going to take care of them?
Yes. So when I attended the Congressional Black Caucus,
speak to that issue.
2 years ago, when I was at the Congressional Black Caucus, and the Veterans Brain Trust panel, which is a panel that they have for veterans every year at the Congressional Black Caucus, well, Rangel, one of the things that his initiative was to reinstate the draft. And what he said was that he thinks that everybody's kids should go.
Everybody.
Starting from the senators to the billionaires' families.
Absolutely.
Everybody to the inner city.
And then they won't last for 10 or 15 years. They'd last for 1 year, 2 years. We'd do it smart, and they'd bring them home.
The war wouldn't be still going on.
Right.
In fast.
Right, which we can't afford anyway. I mean, remember, we had a balanced budget until we had the wars. I mean, we don't budget for war. I mean, it's still the same tax base. We don't have the money for war. We could be taking care of the veterans we had if we weren't going to war.
Absolutely.
because the tax dollars don't change. They don't ask everybody to put an extra $100 in a pot because we have a war.
But can I pivot and stay on subject still? I mean, because I watch the news. I mean, I'm the CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. I mean, I got my spouse watching the news all the time. And the other day, I saw a report of how many veterans had died that week. And I was thinking to myself,
Reported. Those are just the reported veterans. So there's a lot of veterans that die. You don't even know that they're a veteran.
and I was saying to
Because they may
myself,
commit suicide.
now
The
this is
family's not going to report
what
that.
bothers me about this country that's so great, that we spend time chasing all these stories in politics and posturing, and Kelly Conway talking about, go buy products at Nostrum, and then you in office, and I'm not trying to be bipartisan or choosing a side, but what about the conversation around veterans? It's a war going on. People are actually dying, but nobody's talking about it.
People don't care unless it affects their pocketbook and their household. You know that. I mean, this is everybody in this country, in this world now is about me. It's about me. What have you done for me lately? And that's my fear. What will this country be like? There's no reason to get out of the war. I mean, we got out of Vietnam because people basically boycotted. The flower children, they protested because they were tired of their kids and their boyfriends and girlfriends getting killed in war. I mean, so they protested it because everybody was equal. We were all on an equal. It helped with race relations. It put us all on an equal playing field. It's because we all were experiencing the same thing. Rich, poor, Black, white, Hispanic, everybody experienced the same thing. Now that we don't have to experience, we can just pay for it. Corporations can make money off of it, but they don't have to worry about their children dying because they don't have to go. And it's just not fair. It is not fair. We shouldn't have another war unless every 18-year-old has to enlist.
Yes, and historically we have seen that there's more African Americans from urban areas or urban neighborhoods that have been sent off, whether they wanted to or not. So, and then in addition to what you were saying earlier, there are inner city kids that just can't afford college. I came from a single parent home, so that's what I did. In order to pay for college, I actually, and thank God it was in peacetime, but when you think about those other generations that actually are in war and just went to just get the education, but they're coming back without a leg, without a limb, or if they come back at all.
Amen.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a problem for this generation to deal with. I appreciate this generation stepping up to what's even going on in politics right now. But I mean, we've done all we can. I mean, my generation has done all we can. We can support you, we can love you, but you've got to deal with this. There should be no more war unless everybody's kids go. I mean, that's just not fair. I thought this country was based on fairness. I think that tipped the scale on fairness when at 9/11, when people had to go. I mean, that tipped the scale far unequally in terms of justice for all when only the poor people went to war.
Do you believe that we live in the most unique time in this generation when you look at before technology, how it was, because I went to see Hidden Figures, and you know what a computer was?
A person.
A person.
Yeah, my mother was one of those ladies at Kelly Air Force
I
Base.
mean, this picture, I went to see it.
I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, I knew
I won't give it
that's what she
away.
was. Yeah, don't talk to me about it.
But you just told me.
But I mean, that's a person. Well, I know because my mother was one of them at Kelly Air Force Base. Yeah, they did it. I mean, they did it, and they were the first ones to put the information in those big green spreadsheets that were perforated. She used to bring that home in the 60s. I mean, they were at Kelly Air Force Base. You know, they had the black secretarial pool, which she was in charge of, which was not just secretarial, it was also numbers.
So they put the computer in a room the size of the one we're sitting in, where today this contains, if not more information.
The mathematics, yeah, it contains.
And but back to my point is, I think that this generation will be talked about 1,000 years from now, like we talk about the dinosaurs that was here billions of years ago and what their impact was when they were here. The reason why I say that is because I don't think we can maintain where we are, but history is going to learn so much from the decisions we made, good and bad, and they will always go back to this time, not the time before. They won't go back to the 30s, the 40s, and 50s, and 60s. They will look at this time now to decide what you should do and what you shouldn't do.
And I think they'll be deciding where we went wrong. Because
Right,
I think
from where we're living at.
It started with the wars. I mean, it started and the attitude started, I think, where we went wrong. So I agree.
The reason why I'm so passionate about advocacy work and what she is doing and what you're doing, Vivian, is when that conversation start 1,000 years from now, I want my name to be mentioned in that conversation as a person that worked boots on the ground, that spoke out against injustice, inequality, and anything that dehumanized a person, that I was on the right side of the argument in history as the time it is now, and that I align myself with people like Dr. Jones and Chief of Staff Vivian King, and that
a proud member of the Harris County DA's office.
Right, a proud member of the DA. We need the district attorney office, especially the one under Kim Org with the progressive ideals and the liberal viewfinder to look and say that people are people, and to create a justice that really is just
And colorblind, and is driven by what Kim Og cares about and what most people care about, and what she learned on the campaign trail is people care about property crimes and victim crimes. That's what they care about. They care about mostly, but we only have a certain amount of resources. I mean, we're spending, $400 million a year in Harris County on the criminal justice system. I mean, there can be $10 million saved on, diverting marijuana or dealing with 21st century policing. What I'm real excited about is a 21st century policing that will come in the future, where we know in real time where the crimes are occurring, so people can be dispatched to, law enforcement can be dispatched, cameras can be dispatched, surveillance can be dispatched to where the crime is occurring. Right now at 7:25, we know where it's happening based on the dispatch calls, and we can work on it. Wouldn't that be exciting?
I think that would be great.
I mean,
if that dispatch finds out that that's a veteran, to make sure that that veteran is taken to the VA, or if they're going to be taken down to Harris County Jail, that they're placed in a facility where they're able to get the assistance that they need and not just thrown in jail.
A veteran.
This may be a veteran.
One of the things that I guess I need to do is, if you don't already know Mark Carter, I think I need to set you up with Mark Carter. So do you know Judge Carter?
I've met him before, yes.
Okay. So have you talked to him about working on some things with him?
I
or?
have not.
Okay, well, I think you might need to. So we need
to do that.
We need to have that conversation, because we want our female veterans to get the unique services that you've researched and uncovered and can provide that maybe he doesn't know about.
Yes. So while I was serving,
and maybe the DA's office doesn't know
absolutely. So while I was serving on the Funds for Veterans Assistance, which is a committee that distributes the money underneath Texas Veterans Commission, and I actually when I was on the board, I didn't have anybody to my right or my left that actually looked like me. So I was actually happy to be on that board because I was a female and I was African American, so I was able to represent two different populations. And one of the things that I focus on, we focus on mental health, we focus on housing, employment, and Veterans Treatment Court. So my focus was on women veterans organizations and veterans treatment courts to make sure that they're fully funded, to make sure that they're continuing to grow across the state of Texas, because as we heard earlier, there's so many, over 200 counties in Texas, but there's only 32 veterans treatment courts in the state of Texas. And we only have one regional court, which means that there's one judge that's overseeing in multiple regions. So if there's veterans in counties that are away from where that specific court is, they're able to come in. However, we're going to need more courts like that are actually extending to the other rural area veterans. Because again, once we get outside of the city lines or the county lines, we start to lose those veterans. So we want to make sure that the veterans treatment courts are fully funded, and that they're continuing to grow across the state of Texas. So that's one thing that I actually focused on when I was on the board, just to make sure that these veterans treatment courts actually have what they need, so that we'll see productive citizens. Because when these guys were in war, we were cheering them on. When they came back, we were cheering them on. But now that they've sort of fallen from grace, they don't get the support that they should receive. So that's definitely something that I think that Texas should continue to focus on, is increasing the number of veterans treatment courts here in the state.
I agree.
And that was my point earlier. Does the perception of a veteran change once he becomes part of the criminal justice system? do I lose my honor now I'm a returning citizen, formerly incarcerated person, versus when I just had a Danny Sneed with an honorable discharge? How do you see me now when I fill out an application, I'm a veteran, but then I have to go down here and mark the box and saying, but I've been convicted of a felon. I've seen both. I've seen people really open up to the fact, I don't care what you did, you're a veteran, I'll hire you. And I've had that experience. I want to let you know, the people I work for now took a huge chance, not a chance, but
They did. Say it like it is. Say
No,
it
they
like
didn't take a hit.
say
Not
it like
Danny.
you, say it like
Not
you're the
Danny.
employer and not
Not-
the employee.
Look.
Be the employer. If I had, yeah, be the employer. Say it like you were saying it at first, because that was the real.
hiring Danny was a good decision, but it was based on my lifestyle and what I was doing. But here's what happened. After I got hired, 3 weeks after I got hired,
I want to start back with they took a huge risk in hiring.
well,
you.
because of my extensive
criminal history.
Criminal history.
So why would someone take a risk on you when you might go right back like you've been going? That is a risk, because that could
Okay.
always happen.
So they
That's
rolled.
a huge risk.
Okay, so they were gamblers. They took a risk. They rolled a dice.
And I'm glad they did. So
They
say it
did.
like it is.
Okay, but here's the thing. I left a job to work for this company, and 3 weeks on a job, the headquarters called, and they got a dossier. Is that pronounced that word?
Dossier, but
a
it's okay.
dossier on Danny Sneed. And they was going through and they was like, oh my God. So they made a phone call to Houston and say, who hired this guy? Walk him off the premises immediately.
With this criminal history.
Right, we got his background back. And there's no way he can work for us. But I had people that I worked for advocated for me. And they saying, we cannot deny that is his record. But we know that because he told us that about him when we met him. We knew that. But the person he is,
You got 30 seconds, Danny.
is not what he's doing. But they kept me, and I've been with their company now for almost 8 years.
Amen. And got a raise lately, a new position last year.
I did. After
afforded
7
you,
years, I got a promotion as a Veterans Career Specialist.
and so that was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so I keep advocating for returning citizens, formerly incarcerated persons.
They took a risk, and you're there 8 years now, and you've gotten a promotion, and you've had longevity and job stability.
Well, I hang around successful people like Vivian King,
All
Dr.
right.
Jones,
All right.
Dr. Jones.
And your wife.
Okay. Hi, Stephanie.
I'm being told to wrap up. Dr. Jones, thank you so much for volunteering your time to educate us about female veterans that sometimes find themselves homeless and in the criminal justice system. Danny, thank you for being a great co-host and for finding Dr. LaShondra Jones to tell her
Salute.
story.
Vivian King.
Army, Marines, thank you for your service. To both of you, thank you for your service. And thank you for watching. And hopefully, we'll see you next week when we tell you another interesting story to educate you about the Harris County Criminal Courthouse. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight, we have something really good.
That's going to be a very informative reboot.